Let's talk about how you got started in racing. I mean, your mom and stepdad, I guess, started you. I mean, you started at a fairly young age.
Yeah, I mean, I started when I was, 5 years old, and it was more of just kind of a hobby, just something to keep me out of trouble. I guess my stepdad, my mom, brought home I don't know if it was Christmas, I don't know what it was, but brought home a couple quarter midgets, one for me, one for my sister. My sister was never interested, and of course I was. Just started out in a field at the fairgrounds, just making our own track to sanction events at tracks all over the country, and winning national championships, and that becoming my career.
When did you know that you wanted to be a full-time driver?
Well, I would say when I graduated from high school, I'd been racing from the age of 5 all the way up till I was 17 or 18 when I was getting ready to graduate from high school. But I think you get to that point in your life when you're in high school and everybody's talking about college or talking about what they're going to do when they get out of college, and me, all I could ever talk about was racing. But I never really thought that was going to be my career. That was what I was going to be doing for the rest of my life. It was hard for me to really sit down and think about that. I said to myself, and I talked to my mom and dad, I said, all right, what we're going to do is I'm going to graduate from high school. When I graduate, going to continue racing. If things go well, then I'm going to continue racing. If things kind of turn around and things aren't going well, then I'm going to, go to college. And I tried to prepare myself in high school to be able to do that. Well, I mean, the day I graduated, I had one of the best runs I'd ever had. That night that I graduated, I was racing in Bloomington, Indiana on a dirt track with the World of Outlaws, the best sprint car drivers, in the world, and qualified second, finished fourth, and it was just it was an awesome night, and I knew right from there that I was going to be racing for a long, long time. But I think until, you don't really feel stable, you don't really feel like you're in control of your destinies or your career until you get a contract. And my first contract came when I moved to Busch Grand National, and then the big contract, when we moved to Winston Cup, and that's when I knew. And it wasn't until then that I knew that I was going to be doing this for the rest of my life.
From 16 years old on, I mean, you were just like dominating on that track. I mean, Jeff Gordon, if he didn't win the race, he was number 2 or number 3. It seemed like every week you flip on Saturday Night Thunder at ESPN, and Jeff Gordon's name is on the podium somewhere.
Yeah, I think Saturday Night Thunder was that was a big step for me, and that was really what I feel has gotten me to this point in my career. Live on ESPN, midget and sprint car racing, you can't beat that. It's still doing a lot for the guys now that are coming up through the ranks. But for me, I just had 1 year where I couldn't do any wrong. I mean, I think I won like 5 or 6 of the 10 TV races. I don't know, it could have been even more than that. And if I didn't win, like I said, I was running 2nd or 3rd. I was always right there, and got my name out into the rest of the racing world. It wasn't just now. It wasn't considered I wasn't considered just a midget or sprint car guy. Now it's like, hey, this driver, he can drive anything. He's driven Silver Crown cars, midgets, sprint cars, and so when I called somebody to either try to get a sponsor or get a ride in maybe a stock car or any other type of vehicle, when I started looking for the next step beyond midgets and sprint cars, I could say my name or introduce myself, and they would say, yeah, don't you race on on ESPN on Saturday Night Thunder? And it was such a great end to a lot of connections.
Dale Earnhardt came in very next year, won the championship, and a lot of people are saying Jeff Gordon drives just like him, has the drive, has the ambition. He's another Dale Earnhardt. How do you take those comparisons when people are comparing you to the guy that's just been so dominating for so long?
Well, you know, I don't know really how to take it. There's a lot of things that have been printed or said or whatever, you know, and I guess I just don't pay attention. I either don't pay attention to them enough or I pay attention to them too much. You know, I don't know, but things like that don't bother me because I've kind of stopped reading the papers and watching the news, and you know, because it's great to see something good, but when there's something bad, you know, you don't want to always read those things, and I think that I don't really pay that much attention to all the things that people say. I'm not going to be the next Richard Petty or Dale Earnhardt, I can tell you that right now. I want to be Jeff Gordon, and I want, you know, to set my own goals and achieve those, and I want to be successful just as much as those guys. You know, I would really love to win the amount of races, the championships that Dale Earnhardt has won, that Richard Petty has won, but you know, I don't feel like I personally can be compared to anybody out there. I'm my own driver, I'm my own person, and you know, I want to be the next Jeff Gordon, not the next Dale Earnhardt or Richard Petty.
Jeff Gordon takes the checkered flag and wins his first career short track.
You've won 5 times this year. You've led more than 1/3 of the laps this year that have been run. Is there a point where you've read a story about yourself or seen some of the stats and marveled at what you and your team have been able to accomplish this year?
It is amazing to me to know, you know, now the season that we're having, and then look back and think about, you know, when we were back in Daytona, just what were we going to have? What kind of a race car was the Monte Carlo going to be? You know, how tough is our team going to be? How well are Ray and I going to work together? And now I can say, man, we did all of that and a whole lot more.
People talk about you're a more mature driver this year, you're a better driver this year. Where do you notice that you are better doing in 95 than you were in 94 or 93?
Well, first, you know, I mean, whether or not I'm better or whether it's just a lot of things are better, it seems like obviously my team has really come on strong, and they've made me a better person and a better race car driver. I used to get on the radio and scream and yell, you know, every time something went wrong, every time the car wasn't perfect. Now, if it's not perfect, or you know, if we know we've got more pit stops or whatever, then I'm being able to be patient. You know, I've been able to be patient enough to go and just wait for that next pit stop.
You had a chance to scream and yell at Daytona when you came in and the car fell off the jack.
Exactly, and you know, that was really what set the mode for the rest of this season, is being able to just, you know, go after it, do the best you can. If it's not your day, then it's not your day.
Dale Earnhardt wins.
What do you feel of a rivalry that a lot of people say may be brewing, in fact?
Well, I think if there is, it's going to come down to the end of the season when you're really going for a championship. I think right now, you know, we are working together on the racetrack. We talk and get along off the racetrack. I don't see, you know, that rivalry really brewing, but I think when it comes down to $1 million championship, if we're still in that position, and Dale's in position, and even Sterling or Mark Martin or any of those guys, if they're in position, that's when you're going to see, you know, mind over matter. It's, you know, that competition just takes over, and you know, you're going to do just about anything, whatever it takes to win.
Here's Jeff Gordon. He's in his young 20s, good-looking guy, has a beautiful wife, a beautiful home, millions of dollars already at this young age. If NASCAR is going to jump beyond the image of the Southern sport, he's the person who carries that banner. Do you feel any of that pressure?
I think that is a lot of pressure, but really I put more pressure on myself to go out there and to achieve those goals, and you know, to win races and someday be a Winston Cup champion. But at the same time, you know, I'd love to see the sport grow. I mean, I think everybody wants to, and if I could be a part of that, then great. That's not pressure on me, that's enjoyment.
What was it like being in Victory Lane at the Brickyard, the first Winston Cup race, especially being the kid with the Indiana roots?
You know, it was just one of the most incredible days that I'd ever been a part of, because leading up to that race, I felt something inside me, butterflies or whatever they are, something I don't feel on a normal race weekend. You know, I felt like, man, I really feel like we're going to win this race. And I never feel like that, and I can't wait till the next time I do feel like that.
Is there a lure to try Indy cars?
I think there certainly was at one time. I think that right now, maybe because I'm so involved in, and I enjoy Winston Cup, and things have gone so well for me since I've gone to NASCAR, that I feel something special there. I feel like I belong here. This is really where Jeff Gordon, you know, his career needs to stay.
Our house call this week brings us to the beautiful lakefront home of Jeff and Brooke Gordon. And Jeff, first I got to ask you, you did such a wonderful job decorating this place. I know you had most to do with that.
Oh yeah, I had a lot to do with it. But that's one, great thing about Brooke and I, is that we really like a lot of the same things, and so a lot of the colors, a lot of the things that you see in here are things that we really like together. But no, I certainly didn't have anything to do with picking out the.
Realistically, how much are you home a week? I mean, do you get to spend 24 hours maybe at home?
Some weeks, some weeks more, some weeks less. Usually about 2 or 3 days out of the week, I'm in and out. If you count up total hours, it probably is only 24. I really enjoy what I do. I enjoy working with the sponsors, and right now it's a lot of fun to me, so I'm working pretty hard at doing a lot of different things.
We talk about having fun as a race car driver. No one could be having more fun than Jeff Gordon right now. Since the middle of August, you have been incredible. You haven't finished worse than second since Bristol. What, second, first? What a run.
It's really become an unbelievable season for us. I can't tell you how determined and how focused this team is. I mean, they come from behind efforts all the way from the beginning of the season, all the way up to every race right now. I mean, you look at Dover, I mean, we didn't have the best car at certain parts of the race, yet when it really came down to it, bang, all of a sudden we're leading. Same thing this past weekend at Martinsville. It's just an unbelievable team effort, and the guys never lose confidence in me, and I never lose confidence in them, and Ray and I are just really clicking right now, and it's a lot of fun to be a part of this race team.
9 wins thus far, I should say, 1996. Go to Wilkesboro this weekend, and then, how many places you love to go to? Charlotte coming up, Rockingham, Atlanta. I mean, how many could you guys win? Could you run the table?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to say that we could or whether we can or not, but we've kind of surprised ourselves this year. I mean, we've just really focused on being there at the end of every single race, and when we are, it's like we find ourselves in position. So if the remaining 5 races, if we can put ourselves in position at the end, I feel like we can win them all. But I'm not expecting to do that, and I'm not going to put that pressure on myself or this team. We're just going to go out there and be content with whatever wherever we finish.
So you just settle for a 9-win season then, and maybe just have a few second or third sprinkled in the last part of the year.
Oh yeah, championship is what we're looking at. I mean, we want to win that championship really bad, but we certainly want to win more races too. I mean, it would be really neat, I think, to win 10 races. That's an unbelievable mark. I mean, I'm just ecstatic right now with winning 9, but and I don't want to get greedy. Sure, I'd love to win 10, but if we don't, we've had a great year. Even if we don't win the championship, we've had a great year. But if you look at our goals and what we want to do to really make this a successful season, then we're looking at another championship.
Do you ever go back and look at any of the old footage of Thursday Night Thunder and see yourself in that the midget or the Silver Crown car? I mean, and the old roll cage camera. You're looking out across that.
Well, it's funny because I still love Thursday Night Thunder, and I love the midgets and the sprint cars, and I watch them every opportunity that I can. And every once in a while they'll show old clips, and a lot of times Brooke and I'll be sitting there, look, that's what I used to do. I remember that race, or I remember that move, or whatever. and it's very exciting, and I know that I wouldn't be where I am today without being on ESPN and really getting recognized, getting my name out there, and having the success and the car owners and the things that I did. I went to a track the other day that I grew up racing on, a dirt track, and it was just amazing to watch these sprint cars, these winged sprint cars, running up high, just throwing dirt, and I was thinking, gosh, I used to do that? I can't believe that I used to do that. But I remember it was one of the most exciting times of my life, and I don't ever want to forget it.
People who saw you grow up in open wheel ranks and saw how successful you were, they dreamed, if you go to Indianapolis or go to Pittsburgh, they dreamed that Jeff Gordon would race and win the Indianapolis 500. And yet you've never run that race. Do you think you ever will?
Not that I can see. You know, I think once I made the step to go to NASCAR and race Busch Grand National and Winston Cup, now I'm very committed to it, and you know, I don't see myself getting in those type of cars. I love the Indianapolis 500. I love the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and I think, you know, what Tony George has done is pretty unbelievable. But to me, winning the Brickyard was my Indianapolis, and that fulfilled a lot of dreams, a lot of things that I wanted to accomplish, and you know, that's what I'm going to focus on from now on, is trying to win that Brickyard race. But you know, at one time I would never even second guess that question. I would have said, oh, Indianapolis is everything, because I grew up around that area. But now that I'm in Winston Cup, that is really Daytona 500, you know, and the Brickyard 400. Those are my races that I'd like to win.
May not be fair to ask, but had the IRL been around back in the early years when you were growing up, and maybe the opportunities had been there, do you think things would have happened differently?
I can't guarantee, but I would bet, yeah, I would probably be right there. And one reason that I probably didn't focus more on IndyCar was because I had done very little road racing, very little rear engine racing, and I was more focused on the oval tracks, and that's what attracted NASCAR to me so much. So you know, I think, yeah, had that opportunity been there, I probably would have jumped right on it. You know, had Tony you know, come to me and said, hey, we're putting this series together. So it's exciting for me to see it. I hate to see the two split, but I think it's exciting to see what's going on, because I'm seeing a lot of young talented drivers get the opportunity that they might not have gotten if IRL wasn't there.
What do you tell kids? I mean, you started go-karts at the age of 5. And if a parent comes to you and says, my son, I think my son's got what it takes, I want him to be a Jeff Gordon, you're a role model, what do you tell that parent, or what do you tell those young kids?
Well, it's tough. The first thing I tell them is that there's no guarantees. That, you know, I think that it's important to get kids in race cars as young as you can. 5 years old, you know, is when I started, and get them started young, and get that experience going. And you've got to have an eye to see if there's the talent there. And once you see that talent, like my, you know, father did and my mother, they you know, went on that talent, and you know, we set dreams and goals, and it paid off. But it's not going to pay off for everybody, and fortunately it has for me, and I hope it does for a lot of other young kids out there.
We're hearing your name with toothpaste now, and everything, sunglasses, I mean, you name it, you've got it for endorsements, but you've chosen not to pursue an endorsement with a brewery, and I'm sure there are many that would love to sidle up next to you and associate themselves with you. Why do you do that?
Well, you know, I like the image that I've been able to have coming into to Winston Cup, and I'd like to be able to keep it that way. But, you know, we've got great sponsors, and we're also trying to really target the kids out there. And I guess because I'm still a kid at heart, you know, I like the kids a lot, and we try to do things that are young and fun, and that's kind of the way I am off the racetrack.
If the tobacco settlement that's in front of Congress does go through, that's going to mean that Winston has to dissociate itself with NASCAR. It kind of puts you in a difficult position, though, wanting to have a clean-cut image, wanting to appeal to children, saying that you don't smoke, yet at the same time, the people who help put NASCAR on the map are the people who also sell cigarettes.
It is a tough situation to be in, but you know, they don't target kids, even though as much as the government wants to say that they do. You know, that sponsorship, it's no different than alcoholic beverages or really anybody else out there. They know that they got to be 18 years or older to buy cigarettes, and you know, they really don't push that. But they have a company that produces cigarettes, and there's a lot of people out there that do smoke. And you know, I'm not going to judge people for whether they do or whether they don't, but I support them in what they've done for our sport.
I sense sometimes that there's a little bit of resentment of your early success. I mean, you're in your mid-20s, you got the world by the tail, yet it seems that there are some guys who wouldn't mind seeing you fall on your face a little bit. They don't really come right out and say it, but you get that feeling. Does that gnaw at you a little bit?
Not really. I mean, you know, it's just like the boos and the cheers right now in the grandstands. If you're at a race and go to driver introductions, it's pretty interesting, you know. I've got a lot of fans out there, but there's a lot of loyal fans within NASCAR Winston Cup Racing that support their driver or their sponsor, manufacturer, whatever, in their team. And so there's some out there that would rather me not get to victory lane, you know, because they're big supporters of their own team. But, you know, I would understand if a kid comes in tomorrow, you know, 19, 20 years old, starts, you know, winning Winston Cup races. I would say, oh, you know, he hasn't earned it. But I would hope that I'd also step back from that and say, you know, what has this kid done? Exactly where has he come from? Maybe he has earned it. And I think if you look at the statistics, look at the background, you know, I've certainly taken many, many steps to get to this level.
Here comes Jeff Gordon to take the lead.
First of all, Jeff, just your thoughts on the 1997 season.
Oh boy, so many emotions, so many exciting things. I mean, I basically have to look at the whole year, you know, and go back and recap on everything that got us to the championship battle here in Atlanta. But, you know, just the big wins, the number of wins. I mean, we basically had a career year. I mean, for me, for the team, for Rick Hendrick. And it's a great feeling. It's such a sigh of relief to, you know, cross that line and say, whew, you know, we did it. What a year. I mean, it's going to be a year that you know, it's going to be hard to measure up to. And the only thing that could complete it as a career year was winning that championship, and to do it not only for ourselves but really for Rick Hendrick. I mean, he's had such a you know, tough year, but when it was all over, boy, yeah, you know, I know he had a smile on his face, and that right there in itself, you know, gives me a lot of satisfaction.
For a while on Saturday, it looked like your championship team may have been unraveling. You put on a good face for everyone then. But now that it's over, now that you have won the championship, tell us how you were really feeling.
Oh, my nerves were shot. I mean, every muscle in my body was tense. I really honestly haven't slept for 2 weeks ever since Phoenix, you know, and I basically been saying, yeah, I'm fine. And I have to do that because you can't let your competitors, you can't let the media, you can't let anybody know that you know, things could be getting to you, or they'll know where you know, where your weaknesses are. And you know, I still felt good about what our chances were to win the championship, but I was like, oh boy, what have we done? You know, I mean, what have I done? Here I go out there, wrecked a great race car on pit road. You know, then we go out with the backup car, had a shot at a top 10 in qualifying, and made a mistake and dropped some oil on the track, and ended up, you know, barely getting into the show. So, you know, today, that's what makes it so much sweeter and so satisfying to go through a day like that and then back it up by, I'm sure a lot of people had doubts. A lot of people were probably counting us out, saying, boy, we got them right where we want them. And, you know, we were able to come through. And that just shows how great this team really is, and why we got to this point, because of the hard work and the dedication, the focus that they've had all year long. And it would have been disappointing to have lost it, you know, on a situation like that, to come down to the final race. But to be able to pull it off makes it so much sweeter and so satisfying.
Can you explain Ray Evernham's influence on you?
This team would never be as intense and have the focus that they have, you know, if it wasn't for Ray Evernham. I mean, he is just so adamant about, you know, what it takes to be a winner. and he's a great coach, and he's a great demonstrator to be able to put that kind of incentive in, not only to me but the entire team. And ever since he and I have gotten together, it's like magic, and he creates, you know, this atmosphere around him with his guys, with the guys on the team, and with myself, that it's hard not to be able to go out there and win when you're driving a race car that he's working on.
Is this team close to filling in that bottom box on the checklist in your shop?
I don't know if we can ever, you know, become a dynasty in our lifetime. I mean, I don't know, you know, maybe we have to keep somebody around to be able to check that off when we're gone, you know. I mean, that to me is almost an unaccomplishable thing while I'm still driving, you know. And I don't think we can decide whether, you know, that dynasty check mark can be marked off, but I can tell you this is a step towards that, and this is heading in the right direction.
Your thoughts on Mark Martin?
I think Mark is awesome, you know. I mean, I've always felt like that. He's one of the first drivers that I ever really started watching on television when I started watching NASCAR races. He has a great team, a lot of great individuals, and he's a great race car driver, and he deserves to win a championship. It's tough when, you know, you're battling with that guy every weekend, and your job is to beat him, and your job is to finish ahead of him. And, you know that here's a guy that has earned his way to this point and deserves it, and you're going to take that away from him. You know, but again, that's my job, and hopefully, you know, he has that respect for me that you know, as a competitor, because I certainly have a lot of respect for him.
Does the date Saturday, May 23rd, mean anything special to you?
When I slept in, I don't know if the alarm just didn't go off or I didn't hear it. I never did come to that conclusion, don't want to know. All I know is I was late to the racetrack, and when I pulled in the racetrack, I mean, that's the worst feeling you can ever feel. You know, it'd be like a game starting and you're not there. Luckily it wasn't race day. It's important for me and Ray to set those standards for those other guys, and it was a real letdown to me personally, because I don't think they took it, you know, as bad as I did. And, you know, I do think that it turned around, certainly turned around that weekend, and may have turned around our season.
And it looks like that Gordon,
the contact, and Jeff spins.
We all have opinions as to what happened and why it happened, but I think when you really look at it, it's the results that came out of it. And, you know, I don't know, I mean, I feel like I motivate myself well. I like to get in the race car and drive hard and be aggressive when I need to be patient when I need to be, you know, but for some reason, when that happened, it just lit a fire underneath me and the entire team. You know, they just said, you know, okay, we got to make up a lot of points that we just lost here, but we're going to take this and turn it into a positive, and A, not let this happen again, and B, show everybody else out here that this is not going to affect us.
Then there was Tiregate.
Another motivator. Maybe people will get a look at these things and say, hey, don't do this.
I'm not gonna talk to you anymore.
I think it motivated us to go out there and show everybody and say, okay, first you go look at the tires, tell everybody there's nothing wrong with them. We knew that. We, you know, no big surprise there. Now we're going to go out and show everybody that there's more eyes on us now than there ever has been, and we're you know, in those books, we're doing everything right and within the rules, and that we can still win. And that's what we did, you know, what, the following weekend or 2 weeks later or something at Darlington. The organization is awesome. The people are awesome. And I'm very proud to be a part of it. And it's not any one individual. It's not just me. It's not just Ray. It's not just anybody. And it's all of them together that work together, that believe in each other, that believe that they can win and win races and win championships.
Jeff Gordon wins here at Bristol.
We were okay at the beginning of the year. We struggled at some places, but yet we were always there at the end of the race. But the middle of the season, you know, we just really started clicking off all these consistent finishes and some way or another getting wins in there at the same time. I mean, there's a lot of times when I was shaking my head because I really didn't feel like we were the car to beat or the car capable of winning that day.
It could be said this was a very difficult year for Hendrick Motorsports, and that maybe this championship might mean more to them than any other.
I think every championship means a lot and is very special. I mean, the first one in '95 was very special because it was the first one. You know, Terry's in '96 was special, you know, because it was the first one for the 5 car, and it was 2 in a row for Hendrick. You know, last year was special with everything that was going on with Rick. This is our way of saying thanks to everything that he's done for us, and also a way for us to just say, you know, hey, you know, this is for you, man. This is for all that you've gone through this year. And so this, I'm sure this is a real special one to everybody at Hendrick Motorsports, but I'm sure it's real special to Rick also.
Three-time Winston Cup champion, the defending champion, 42 career wins. Does it seem strange that it's you that we're describing when we say that? Absolutely. You know, I mean, it's so strange for me to hear that because I know that just 6 years ago, there wasn't any of that. You know, I was just coming into Winston Cup, and I remember saying to myself, boy, you know, do I have what it takes to be a Winston Cup driver? Do we have what it takes to make a winning team or a championship caliber team? And there was just so many unknowns at that point, and then all of a sudden, bang, things started happening. One of those rare Sundays that you don't win, and you may not have finished in the top 5 or top 10. What do you like that Sunday night? I mean, are you just consumed with it? Well, you know, every situation is different. But if we're a winning car or a 5th place car and we finish, you know, 10th or 15th, then yeah, it consumes me. You know, it really, it's hard for me to get my mind off because I'm thinking, okay, what could I have done to make the car go faster? What could I have done to give Ray more information? And I know he does the same thing. The pit crew does the same thing. When we make mistakes, we learn from those, and usually we don't make the same mistake twice. I wonder if you've thought about it, you know, what all goes in to make you and your team so good. Do you have any idea? To me, what makes a difference between a good team and a great team are the people that you put in place. And Ray went through some people at the beginning. You know, there were just people that didn't mix with the type of atmosphere that our team created or the type of work ethics that Ray liked to see. And, you know, he's had to work on me at times too. You know, there's times that I wasn't up to par with the way the whole group is working. And right now we have people that work together. So I guess in that respect, you couldn't just take anybody and plug them into your seat as the driver and expect to have the same level of success right away, could you? You put another driver in there and they're gonna be successful. They're gonna win races. You know, as a driver, I hope that I bring a little bit extra to it, and I think because of the relationship that Ray and I have, we know what each other's thinking a lot of times, and that takes time. That takes you know, getting used to. So I think that I could bring a little bit more to it and maybe win a few more races and be a bigger threat for the championship. But I know the team's great. I know, you know, what a pleasure it is to get behind the wheel of that car, and that other drivers could get in there and accomplish great things. We always talk about how NASCAR Winston Cup racing is a family sport, that everybody's like one big traveling family. So do you feel bad sometimes whenever you're, you know, beating these guys, beating your family, and, you know, sometimes embarrassing them with your performances? Well, I think that you've got to learn not to let that affect you. I probably don't have a lot of friends when I'm on the racetrack, you know, or as many, but hey, that goes with the territory. At times it's just like the fans, you know, like, okay, great, you know, we won a race or two, but then you start winning too much and then it starts to get on their nerves, you know. And it's not that I feel bad, it's just that it is kind of awkward at times. But I hope that I keep feeling that awkward feeling, because I'm not expecting to win 13, 10 races or anything like that this year. It's going to be really tough to do that. A lot of those guys that you're talking about, though, say the only way to beat you and your team is if you guys make a mistake or stumble somewhere along the way. Is that true? Well, you know, I mean, I think that we've got
a better team than we had last year, better race cars than we had last year, but so does everybody else. So yeah, in a way I do feel that way. I feel like it does lie in our hands to not make mistakes. When I grew up, I was watching all different types of racing, from sprint cars to Indy cars, stock cars, and just idolize these guys. And now, to be able to put my name in the same sentence in this type of elite group is unbelievable. I still can't actually fathom that it's all happened.
Well, I think the thing for me, and believe it or not, I can still remember being about his age and how I felt. I was quite a bit younger.
I look forward to being your age.
Right. You'll enjoy it. You'll take just as much heat then as you do now, but for a whole different reason. But anyway, when I was his age, and I was starting to win a lot of races and starting to win awards, the first time I won it, I thought, well, that's cool, because this is a big deal. It's one of those traditional deals that I don't think we quite realize today. I don't know if it has the importance today it should have, and it did maybe 10 or 15 years ago, because you got to remember something. This is not just Winston Cup. As Jeff was saying, this is all the racers in the world. Michael Schumacher could just as easily be sitting here.
Well, all of us try to measure where we stand as drivers. I mean, because really all of us are race car drivers, but we all compete in such different types of cars on different types of levels. But still, when it comes to the driver of the year, it's okay. Now we're comparing you with drivers, even though they drive different race cars. You just throw that out. It's driver versus driver.
How much of an influence was someone like Darrell? You said you watched all kinds of races.
Why do you want to put him? He's sitting here by me, How much influence did Richard Petty? Or your real hero, Dale Earnhardt? Tell him that. Don't you don't have to say it.
Okay, how about
Mario? How about Mario? I know Darrell did. He didn't do nothing for you.
Well, the neat thing about Darrell was, sure, I knew of Darrell Waltrip. I knew the greatness and the wins, the championships, all those things, but I didn't know the person until I got into Winston Cup. And that's what made it even more special for me, because once I got to know him, then not only did I want to accomplish the things on the racetrack that he accomplished, but I wanted to be like him, be a really good person, a good family person, and somebody that really looks up to God and prays every day.
When I was winning all those races and being booed and people didn't like me, inside of me was this person that really hurt. But I couldn't let it show. I had to smile, grin, bear it, go right on, just like, well, it's just part of it. Oh, they don't really mean it, that kind of thing. But one of these days, they'll all look up and say, that Jeff Gordon was a pretty nice guy. He does a lot of neat things that we don't even know about. And it's what you do. It's not what you do out on that racetrack. Everybody sees that. It's what you do when you're away from the racetrack. It's what you do when you're not in that uniform and that helmet. That's what counts, and that's what makes you a great, not just race car driver, but a great person, and someone that can build a sport, and that's what he can do. He's the next building block for this sport, and we have to have him. And we need to encourage him, not discourage him.
That's got to put a lot on your shoulders there, Jeff.
Well, yes and no. I think that, to me, we should all be living our life like that. We should all be thinking about, hey, it's not just what we accomplish in our career, it's what we accomplish in life. And we should all be out there saying, listen, I want to be a good person. Sometimes we put that, second or third or fourth on the list. But that's the thing that impressed me the most about Darrell was how he was able to handle all the success he had on the racetrack, but still be a real down-to-earth person away from the racetrack.
You can win all these races, win all these championships, but you better be able to smile at the end of the day, no matter how it goes.
Remember that now.
I'm trying to.
I'm going to try to remember that.
Now that I'm not a car owner, I can remember that a lot better.
More great advice from DW. All I ever wanted to do was just be a race car driver. I just wanted to be the best. It's taken me far beyond any of my expectations.
You are back on top this year after a 2-year transition. What's been the biggest difference for you this year?
I'm having a lot more fun. We just really started to put the team together as a whole. We we're in a building stage, and it took time to get the people in the right place.
There was probably no bigger rival to Dale Earnhardt in the 90s than you. And now each week when you go out and race and you look in your rear view mirror and you don't see the black 3, how does that change things?
It does change things. You know, I think that no matter where Dale Earnhardt was running, he was some type of focus. You know, they always knew you could never count him out, and I knew you could never count him out. And he would surprise you. You know, at the time you were writing him off, boom, all of a sudden there he is battling for the win. So, you know, he brought a lot of excitement. He brought a lot of fans, and you know, we're gonna really miss that a lot. That black 3. I mean, he totally lived up to the Intimidator. I mean, when you were racing him, you were going to rub fenders. There was going to be smoke flying. It was going to be a heck of a race. But when it was all over, you knew that you raced against the absolute best. And if you ever beat him, it was one of the greatest accomplishments that you've ever had as a race car driver. So I'm gonna miss racing with him a lot. But he taught me a lot off the racetrack, as much as he taught me on the racetrack.
Dale Jr., you've been around him a lot. In your opinion, how has he handled his father's death?
Oh, I think he's handled it very well. That's a tough position to be in. You know, to have the same name as his father, I think there was already a lot of pressure. Now I think there's added pressure for him to fill those shoes. And in some ways, we're fortunate that our sport is as hectic of a schedule as it is, because it gives you very little time to get focused on anything else but racing, and in this case it might be the best remedy for him.
Safety's been a huge issue this year. Have you given any thought to ending your career earlier maybe than you thought you originally would?
No, I've always said that I want to race as long as I'm healthy and as long as I'm competitive, and the desire, you know, is there to go out and win. That to me, you know, is very important. And right now I see myself, racing for a lot of years. Sometimes I feel like what happens is we focus so hard, not necessarily NASCAR, but the teams, we focus so hard on either trying to go fast or somebody trying to keep us from going too fast, and sometimes we lose a little sight of the safety, and we need a wake-up call, and we've certainly had some wake-up calls here recently. And I don't know, I've always been one of those people where I feel like when it's your day, you know, and I'm not going to try to do things that make that day come any earlier, but I'm going to race as hard as I can.
Does this championship have a different feel than your other 3?
Every championship is unique to its own, but I think this one especially, you know, knowing what kind of perseverance we had to go through last year. There were times that were very frustrating for us, for the 24 team. You know, what they've accomplished in the past, I think it was tough to take last year, but I think last year made us a much stronger team. I think it made us that championship caliber team.
Not all the memories this year are great. We think about Daytona and the loss of Dale Earnhardt. Considering how close you were to him, does that change the way you look at this championship?
Well, you know, there's no doubt that there's a lot of things that are going to stick out in my mind throughout this year, the good and the bad. And you know, losing Dale this year was very tough to take. I mean, I feel like he taught me how to run for a championship, you know. And I mean, I see a lot of heroes out there, especially since September 11th. And you know, heroes come in different shapes and sizes, and they're not all athletes, but Dale will always be a hero of mine and to so many, because he was such a great champion. He was had such a great presence on and off the racetrack. And I know I learned a lot from him, and I miss racing with him. You know, our fans, you know, hated to see us race, or maybe loved to see us race against one another. They loved to see us bang, but he and I think really enjoyed, you know, the battles that we had, and we're able to laugh about them, you know, off the racetrack. And there's no doubt I'm going to miss that, and that's the downside to this year, you know, that and September 11th and all the losses that we saw this year. You know, there's no doubt that those impacted us all in big ways.
A few months ago, Richard Petty had made some comments, and he was somewhat critical of your personality, saying you were kind of a middle-of-the-road guy,
Right.
not as charismatic as Dale Earnhardt. Were you bothered by those statements, and can you believe that being a nice guy can be perceived as a negative?
No, not at all. And I know Richard Petty, and I have a pretty good idea of what he meant by that, and he's dead on. I mean, you know, I'm not a guy that goes out looking for controversy. You know, I don't think that is going to sell more souvenirs, or that's going to draw, you know, a better crowd or a better audience. That's not what I'm all about. I'm all about actions on the racetrack. You know, people, you know, may wonder my abilities, but as long as I'm a part of a great team and I'm able to go show what I'm capable of and contribute to my team and win races and win championships, that's what the bottom line is for me.